What is this government? Government is nothing but a governing body which sets the rules and regulations through the policies, through rules, the prioritization of development of particular area, the ideology of planning role is there in the government. What the promotional role of the government does, it promotes the business by providing various incentives, tax benefits and subsidies. Hello everybody, I'm Divya, Assistant Professor from Department of Commerce and Management, lecturing Vidhyaashram First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. I take this opportunity to welcome you all for your wonderful session on your Unit 2, Session 1, Government and Legal Environment. Moving forward, the agenda for today's discussion: government functions of the state, economic roles of government, legal environment and importance of legal environment. So as we have discussed in the last class, my dear students, with respect to your external environment, as I have told you, all the external environment factors will be studied as a single separate unit. So we have taken your political and legal environment. So that is your government and your legal environment. So here wherein you will be learning about the roles and responsibilities of the government, how the government will interfere in the business, what are the promotional role they are taking up, what essential thing they are doing in order to promote the business. So moving forward, government functions of the state. So what is this government? Government is nothing but a governing body which sets the rules and regulations through the policies, through rules. If you go for a road, you'll have a traffic signal. You need to follow that rules. Why is that rules is there? In order to safeguard the public through accidents. So in order to safeguard the public, we have traffic rules. Likewise, to protect the business, to protect the domestic trade, to protect the customer, consumer, as well as the general public and as an environment as a whole, the government will set the rules and regulations, the policies in order to run the economy very smoothly. So we can see in this chapter how the government will take up the initiative in order to promote the business, what are the policies, what rules they bring up in order to run the business. So if you go for a particular abroad country, if you go for certain countries, what you do, you want to buy certain goods and come back to our India, because the expenses what you spend for that particular commodity will be less when it compares to our India. But there itself the domestic export and import trade will be stopped. There itself, in your transportation itself, while coming back itself, they'll stop the goods. Why they'll stop the goods? To make sure that they protect the domestic product, in order to encourage the domestic product. So you need to pay custom duty. So what you do, you keep the product there itself and come back to a particular country and buy here only, because the price will be very more. So why this custom duty is there? In order to protect the domestic trade, to encourage the our Indian business, domestic business or particular country business. So government plays a very important and crucial role in encouraging the business. So it provides a legal framework. What it provides? It provides a legal framework for the business, and it creates a healthy competition, protects the environment, and at the same time it wanted to cater the good quality of goods and services to the customers. So they impose rules and regulations. So rules and regulations will be studied in the role of the government. But when it comes to your laws, like your Companies Act, your Goods and Service Act, that's your GST, then Competition Act, so all these acts will be studied in legal environment in our upcoming slide. So let us look at, so the design of regulation need to fit the capability of the state regulatory. So state is responsible for regulating the economy. So if the economy is growing, it is nothing but our government is providing the planning as well as the policies in such a way that it boosts the economy. So it is very important to understand what are the functions and roles of the government. So what are the functions of the government? The government will create the policy, the government will promote the trade, it protects the environment, it protects the customer, it provides employment opportunity. So all these are the different functions, as well as it also provide good services to the public through the social service what it does. So it also encourages the society. How? By creating a good infrastructure, by building up the hospitals, by providing free education facilities. So all these are the different functions of the government in the particular state in order to protect the economy, in order to boost the economic development. Moving forward, economic roles of the government. The government plays a very important role. When it comes to the role of the government, the main 4 roles of the governments are a government as a regulatory role, government as a promotional role, government as a planning role, and government as a entrepreneur role. So we have how many roles? 4 important roles of the government in the economy in order to encourage the business. Regulatory role, promotional role, we have entrepreneur role, and planning role. So let us discuss all the roles in one by one. So this is very important for your examination point of view. Promotional role, the word itself says promotional. The government will promote the business. How it promote the business? By providing incentive to the business. If you have heard about Make in India concept, so what is this Make in India? So through that it encourages the small and medium enterprises. So it provides incentives, it provides loan and tax benefit. The government will provide subsidies in order to encourage the business. So for many startups, government is the initiative which provides what? Which provides the loan and incentives to the business. So it acts as a promoter. So if you have heard about, when it comes to transportation sector, you have heard about IRCTC. So what is that? It is nothing but a government travel, wherein it provides the facilities for the public to travel. So it encourages the tourism sector. So all the business will boost, the service sector will boost, isn't it? So it is very important to understand the promotional role of the government. So what the promotional role of the government does? It promotes the business by providing various incentives, tax benefits, and subsidies. This is also more important in developed countries than the developed, because speedy development of the industries and commerce and the economy requires the development of the infrastructure, including facilitating organization. So when the business boosts, obviously there is a chance of boosting your economy. So if the business boost, it creates an employment opportunity. If employment opportunity is there, you'll have a spending power. If you have that spending power with you, your national income will increase. After national income, ultimately it will lead to your GDP, increase in your GDP. So ultimately it will contribute to our economy. So this, through a promotional role, it acts as a facilitator for the business, wherein it encourages the business to conduct the business activities. Moving forward, we have on entrepreneur role. What is this entrepreneurial role? Government itself will act as an entrepreneur, a business. So the government itself will start up the business. If you take up the examples of IRTC, government will purchase the production of goods and services and then they will sell it to the consumer. So they act as an entrepreneur in order to encourage the business. So they themselves will become the businessmen in order to encourage the society, as well as in order to contribute the for the social and well-being of the economy. So indirect participation of government in business was very common, particularly in nowadays. You can see socialist and developed countries, you can see much of this. So why this ideology is there? In order to become an entrepreneur is to encourage the privatization. However, it has become widespread since the mid-1980s. So it acts as an entrepreneur, wherein wherein the government itself will take up the business and they themselves act as a businessman. The first role of the government is promotional role, wherein they promote the business by providing incentive, tax benefits and the other subsidies for the business in order to encourage the business. So they promote the business. If you see many of the examples in your television, so Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, we have Pradhan Mantri Nirbhar Yojana. So we have many of these yojanas wherein the government itself, they act as an entrepreneur, they act as a promoter to encourage the business. Sometimes what they do, the government will take up the contract from the people, why to construct road, to construct the hospital. So why they take up this contract? In order to encourage the business. So they themselves will act as an entrepreneur and they promote the business. So government intervention in business is very important to understand in nowadays. Why? Because the government itself act as an entrepreneur, they are the promoter, they are running the economy. So if you go to certain industrial place and you go to certain residential place, or if you want to set up certain industry, will the government provide the license to you? No, it is not possible. So if you want to start up the bar and restaurant in a school residential areas, will the government give the permission? No, it has to be outskirts of a particular city. For why all these rules and regulations are there? Because in order to protect the employees, citizens, so that the environment is not disturbed. So anywhere if you go, the business will be intervened by the government. To understand the government roles and responsibilities, essential and significant for you all to start up the business. Moving forward, regulatory role. As I have told you, regulatory means it governs through rules and regulation. It creates, government will bring up the import and export policies, industrial policies, licensing policies. If you want to, if any joint stock companies has to be start up, they have to mandatorily registered under Companies Act 2013. So what it mentioned, how the business has to be started up, what is the capital required, what is the memorandum of association, what is does the government provide license. So all this licensing policy, rules and regulation policies, Environmental Protection Act. So all this, for everything the government is responsible. So the government will take up the policies in order to run the business. So it is important to understand the regulatory role. So a regulatory means through rules and regulation, through rules and policies, the government will regulate the business, it will govern the business. So how it will govern? As I have given you example, they doesn't provide the license to start up the business in particular residential area or particular nearby the schools. Why is it? Because to protect the environment. Regulatory role. Regulation may cover a wide spectrum extending from entry into business through the conduct of business, through entry and to the exit of the business. It is the government rules, under that we have to go into. So through the rules and regulations, they run the business. And also the exit. Regulation is very important for the purpose and for the proper functioning of the market economy. So as I have told you, regulate through that regulation, it also take up the export and import policy, it also provide the policies regarding licensing, all these other policies which will be industrial policy, all these other the trade policy, the wage fixation policy, regarding all these policies the government will look after through regulatory role. Next we have a planning role. So government will provide 5 years planning. Earlier planning commission was there, and for 5 years what are the areas of coverage, what is the expenditure we want, what is the income that we'll get, and which area has to be addressed, which area has to be supervised properly for the better development. So planning commission used to provide 5 years planning. Now it is the Niti Aayog which is providing planning for that. So as a government, it plans the allocation of budget, allocation of expenditure to which area. So what are the achievements has to be gone, millennium development goals we have. So millennium development goals, so in particular time this is the achievement the government has to do. So this is a planning role. The government will take up the planning role. The national necessity for the proper utilization of scarce resources, for the proper utilization of scarce resources and the prioritization of development of particular area, the ideology of planning role is there in the government. So they have made this an important role, government, in the developing and socialist country. So what they do? They do planning and they allocate the budget for the development of the particular country. So this is how they encourage the business. So what are the roles of the government? So as we have discussed, there are 4 important roles that we have discussed. One is promotional role, entrepreneur role. As an entrepreneur, how the government will act, and as a regulatory, that it provides the rules and regulation. Through that rules and regulation and policy, it will encourage the business. And later the government as a planning role, it acts as a planner for the business to know which area the government has to look after for the development of the business. Moving forward, next we have is legal environment. As I have discussed in the initial time itself, the laws what we have in today's generation, the laws what we are formulating, we have custom duty, we have GST, we have Competition Act, we have Indian Contract Act, we have business law, company law. All these are the laws that comes under legal environment of business. So the government has formulated these rules and regulations, these laws for the protection of the business, for the healthy competition of the business, in order to protect the employment, customers, as well as the environment as a holistic. It is important to understand the legal environment of business. Moving forward, the laws which are passed by the government for the business operations, as I have told you, what is legal environment? The laws which are passed by the government for the business operation to conduct, and that is called as legal environment, such as Sales of Goods Act. So under that, what is considered as a good and what is considered as a services? What is goods? What are the quality that they have to maintain? So all that comes under Goods Act. What are considered as a goods for selling purpose? Next, we have Indian Companies Act. As I have mentioned you have to mandatory get all the companies, all the business who comes under joint stock company or that criteria, they have to mandatory come under the Companies Act 2013. Earlier it was 1956. So mandatory, they have to get registered. So if you have to start up the business, any of you, so you should keep in your mind to understand all these rules and regulation. So Income Tax Act 1961, Consumer Protection Act. So Consumer Protection Act 1986, now it is 2013. So some of the changes they have made in the laws. So Consumer Protection Act, why Consumer Protection Act is there? In order to protect the company. Suppose you go to a supermarket and the product, it is sold by the businessman, it is expired. So what you do, you have to go for court, right? Consumer court. So Consumer Protection Act is there. So under that, you will be having certain benefits. You have a certain protection for buying that services or the goods. The Weight and Measurement Act, Environmental Protection Act is there to protect the environment, agricultural policy, industrial policy, investment policies, monetary policies. The Factories Act 1948, the Minimum Wage Act. So the minimum wages now it is how much? 15,000. So 15,000 Minimum Wage Act is there. The legal environment is the principle or the laws which provides the uniformity and the certainty for the administration purpose for the justice. So legal system of the country is formed by the government. So as a, it's not only by developing the infrastructure, as I've told you, by providing good education, good hospital, education facilities to the environment, society, but also they have to pay certain attention towards the legal aspects of the government. So legal aspects of the society, legal aspects of the business. So the government itself will formulate all these legal aspects. Moving forward, Why it is important? What are the importance of legal environment for tax and financial laws? So if you have certain surveillance by the government, there will be transparency in paying tax as well as your finance resources. These laws vary between countries to countries, but generally regulate accountancy practices. So accountancy practices in order to maintain the uniformity, in order to know that for taxation purpose and for the bookkeeping purpose, the legal environment is important. Interest rates, loan and tax, etc. Business are expected to provide a sufficient documentation of income and expenditure. For instance, if you wanted to know why legal environment is important, because in order to have a transparency in your financial matter with respect to the tax that you are paying for the government, in order to avail the loan, so you have to have a proper documentation, proper systematic manner. That is why legal environment is there. Suppose you wanted to start up a company, you should have a number of sufficient documents. We have a concept called a venture capital, private equity. So what is this private equity? If you want to get the loan, you need to provide certain documentation. If the documents is proper, then the venturist, what he'll do, he'll trust the company and provide the investment capital to your company, isn't it? The same case, the government also, in order to have a legal financial aspect matter, transparency in your taxation, the loan. So for all these purpose, legal environment is essential. The rules and regulation, law is essential. Law is important. Moving forward, laws on production or sales. So if nobody is there to govern, what you will do, you will start adultering the food, you will start adultering the process of production, or you'll fix high prices than the original prices. So many of the agriculturists are suffering in today's generation because of this, because there is no proper supervision for the farmers to sell their crop to the particular. What middlemen will do, will take up lesser price from the farmers and sell it to a higher price to the wholesalers. So that is why the government is encouraging the farmers directly to sell the goods to the consumer or the wholesaler without the intervention of middlemen. So this is also the promotional role of the government. Moving forward, the production of sales of certain goods is prohibited. Why certain goods is prohibited by the government? So certain alcohol is prohibited, or certain drug is prohibited by the government. Why it is there? Because in order to protect the economy, in order to protect the public. Severely restriction in many countries. This includes, among other, selling of them dangerous drugs, guns and explosives. For instance, as I have told you, selling of guns, the explosives. So all this are the laws that is there. In order to protect the production as well as sales, we need legal environment. That is why it is significant and important. Moving forward, consumer protection, as this point is being discussed from the initial classes itself. Most countries have laws. We have Consumer Protection Act. Why it is there? In order to protect the consumer as well as customers, so that they are not being deceived by the salesperson or a businessman. So we have various rules regarding that. So this includes regulating weight and measurement. Ensure that goods sold actually are weight of size they are sold at, and it has to be done in a very clean manner, so that whatever the consumption will be taken up, so it should be safe and clean, healthy consumption should happen. So the production of consumers as well as customer, it is important to have the legal environment to take up the laws from the government. Moving forward, employee protection. So employees, without the employees, we don't get the amount, we don't get the income. If the income is not there, they become unemployment. The government, the major problem of our economy is unemployment. So if we take up, many of the schemes are coming up, so by the initiatives has been coming up from the government to improve the employees. We have Swayam, we have Swayam Prabha. Why all these channels have been initiated by the government is to motivate the education in our economy so that the unemployment problem can be eradicated. So laws to protect the employees include laws against unfair discrimination, to avoid the discrimination against race, color, religion, sex or age, laws against unfair dismissal and the other harassments. In order to protect all these and to provide the healthy and safety laws regulating to the employees, to provide the minimum wages to the employees. So all this to protect the employees, legal environment, legal aspects with the government intervention is essential. So that's it, my dear students, for today's class. I hope the session was interesting and fruitful. So we have learnt the function and roles of government. When it comes to roles of government, we have studied the 4 important roles: the promotional role, entrepreneur role, regulatory role and the planning role. So with a few of the examples that I have discussed, then we have learnt about legal environment, what are the rules, what are the laws that is there to protect the employees, to protect the business as a whole. And we have also discussed about what is the importance of legal environment, why it is important. So smile is the biggest jewel you can wear, people. Keep smiling. Thank you.